I do not accept your excuses. If you are going to be this far behind schedule, give me one good reason why I shouldn't blast you into oblivion now. This lair is, hello. Get back to you later. I'm OmnusI once again. And, we're here in what will eventually be level 10 of the dungeon. These are the training rounds, you see, and my minions have left it less than satisfactory. And my builders are going to know my wrath soon enough. However, what I can tell you is this. I'm very sorry for the delay, and once I get things completely straightened out, we'll continue on with the regular Lair of OmnusI next week. Unfortunately, I will be not able to post this week's episode of Lair of OmnusI. So, what I'm going to do instead is post my second answer to the RPG Brigade's RPGaDay questions. I hope that this will in some way make up to you for my tardiness and leave you with something yet that you may be able to use and enjoy. And I may have a new pair of minion skin boots when next you see me. So, please enjoy. And this is the second viewing that I made when back when I was first considering doing this Lair of OmnusI. I hope you enjoy it. It's a little piece of history for those of you who haven't been following everything I've done on Facebook. Well, carry on. And I will see you next week here in the Lair of OmnusI. And I'll tell you what. Keep an eye on the channel for the next week. I have something in mind that I think I'll be putting up in addition to the next level of Lair of OmnusI to try to make up for what I haven't finished through in this week. So, with that, I give you my RPGaDay question, number 2. Fair travels. OmnusI, and once again I'm answering a question for RPGaDay. This is day number 2's question, which is, what's your best game session since August of 2015? Well, with my gaming group there's been 2 major things that have gone on. First of all, we finished up a Warhammer 40k split campaign that had elements from Deathwatch, as well as a side venture that ended up dominating the campaign featuring Imperial Guardsmen with only war. That has resolved. It was a good story, a lot of fun, really over the top, and if anybody's a huge fan of the fluff of Warhammer 40k, I trampled all over it. Left it pretty much in tatters. But it was a good time. However, 5th edition, Dungeons & Dragons, has come out, and my group has very much become a fan of the simplicity of the style, become fans of the simplicity of the style, as well as all the potential that they have for trying out the new system and kind of, kicking it around and seeing how it goes. We've so far run 1 game up to 5th level, and then in the same world we started up new characters. With the restart, which was primarily to give everybody a chance to try a different character in the new system, we also introduced 2 new players to the group. both of them have limited experience with role-playing, especially the style that I do. So it was quite a, well, it was an experiment. So, my greatest moment was basically that first night of the restart. The two new players rolled up a cleric and a ranger by their own decisions. Nobody else prompted them into it. When I first started Dungeons & Dragons, the others made me a cleric. They had my character ready for me, handed me the character sheet, and I found my role was pretty much to follow everybody around and be the healing battery. I've grown since then, run other clerics that weren't quite so one-dimensional, but that's kind of how I cut my teeth in Dungeons & Dragons. And I wanted to make sure that the player of the cleric wasn't going to be in the same boat. I was also a little concerned that the person playing the ranger was just going to be the person who hung around the back and just shot his bow all the time and wasn't his own person, just basically going around shooting whoever the rest of the group marked. So, first session comes on. In the time-honored fashion, they all met in a tavern. It was in a small town called Kindling, and the tavern was run by a family, kind of a pioneerish flavor to it. All the players came in, their characters came in separately. There was no unifying thing. They all kind of got together because of a common event, which took place in the tavern. The other players, and my more established players, were playing a monk, a wizard, pyromaniac, and a fighter, who is a staunch sword shield type fighter, who has dreams of becoming an arcane fighter, throwing fireballs and such, while wearing full plate. Fun. So anyhow, the others got in, as well as the new players, and through the midst of their initial role play, for instance, the wizard got slapped by a barmaid when he was far too forward with her. The other players kind of were standoffish, as I expected. So when the meat of the encounter came, dark elf, or half elf wearing all black came into the room, started threatening an NPC merchant, and eventually killed him. Everybody started reacting. The monk charged straight ahead and started multi-attacking with his short sword in his fists. The wizard looked at his character sheet, saw he had 6 hit points, and stayed in a corner and didn't do very much. The fighter, of course, got up and got ready to engage, hoping his armor would protect him. These characters were all at first level, so he knew that he could not take a great deal of punishment, but he went to do his job of guarding. The ranger fired off a few shots with his arrows at the elf, and the interesting thing was the cleric moved around to see. He first went to investigate the merchant who was killed. Found out that his soul had been drained by the power of that gauntlet. So the elf traded some blows with the party. Didn't do anything too particular, but then eventually got tired of their interference and decided that he would send them a lesson in the form of a fireball at the bar to attack all of the non-combatants, including the family that was running it, because that's the kind of thing that villains do. Well, the party, kept fighting to drive him off. The next round, he teleported away in a flavorful fashion. He basically dissolved into a flock of ravens that flew out the door. Got him out of the engagement. The cleric, rather than running over and healing the party members who had been hurt, and the fireball did some minor damage to the bar itself, which was fairly robust. Injured a couple of the player characters fairly badly. The cleric went over and he looked after a child who had been caught in the fireball and horribly burned, and started tending to his wounds, alleviating the suffering. He didn't cast any healing spells that first night. He just went and tended to the wounded without actually using his magics. I tell you that his character is lawful evil? I know. That might have sent off some bells and klaxons to some people, sirens going off, but when he described what his character was, his character follows the god Ilmater, who is a god of endurance a god who is into taking on the suffering of others. A very humane god. His character view is that suffering is a divine gift, and it should really only be alleviated in dire need or when somebody's wounds have been gotten for, covering for someone else. The party all rushed forward to attack, so apparently they didn't qualify for the immediate healing in the middle of the combat. Instead, he went to tend to a child who was innocent, tended to the slain, who apparently was just murdered, not actually a combatant himself. So he's got a very different view. The ranger kind of set up the disturbing trend. After firing a few arrows into the fray and seeing that a fireball was the result, he decided, since the merchant was dead, he was going to sneak up the stairs and see what was in the merchant's rooms. He wasn't going to need anything anymore. That also may set up some red flags, but it also lets me know that he thinks outside of the box and isn't just an arrow monkey for the rest of the group. So, unfortunately, the trend that I was referring to wasn't that he went and attempted to loot the dead's rooms. The fact was he rolled a 1, tried sneaking up the stairs, and the bar cat attacked him and savagely knocked him down the stairs, sticking to his chest, hissing and growling at him. Hilarity was to be had, but since that point he also has the tendency of rolling 1s when he's trying to do something his character should be really good at. It will probably be an interesting trend to watch. So, the greatest moment that I've had, and I've told some good stories in this last year, that was the one when I realized that my 2 players who took their next step, they played as their own people, dynamic, exciting, and should be a lot of fun to watch as we go forward into the campaign. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it, and this is OmnusI with my RPGaDay question number 2. I'll see you for the next one. Thank you.